This house was built 1770 and it was lived in until 1966.
Oh wow.
And they even used the staples here until 1978. So it's not that long ago since it actually was in full use. Before 1770 there stood another house here exactly at the same place, but it burned down. And some parts of the house are older than 1770, but we just don't know which one. They have not made any research on that yet. The same family has been farming on this farm since 1532, so it's almost 500 years. The same family has been from generation to generation living here and are still here, just in a new house now.
Oh wow.
We think it's the speciality of this museum, if you think of other tour houses in Iceland, that we are not trying to concentrate on one period. We try to show a little bit, what should I say, the history from 1770 until they quit living here. So you will find things from all periods. And then we ask people to, if you think of that you take the wood out of this room, and then the walls would be like it was 1770, because all the woods came here around 1870, just around that, probably a 20 years period, because as you have probably seen, we don't have very many trees, so all of the wood that is inside is imported. Decorations like this didn't come until 1920 about, and then you have like electricity. Well, there never came electricity as we know today. They had a machine, a generator, that gave some light, and that came 1944, and at the same time there came heating system. So you can see how little by little they have changed the same house to the lifestyle that is on each and every period. So this room was the guest room, and it was always locked in the old days because it was supposed to be clean when the guests arrived. So it was usually just one worker or something that could get in here every day to make it clean. And that's why we think it's appropriate to welcome our guests here in this room.
My grandma was doing the same.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed into the living room because it just had to be perfect.
Yes, yes. So we think it's appropriate to welcome our guests here, as it has been done for centuries. In 1875 we had the ash eruption, and all of the ash came over this part of the land. So they had to well, it was a very difficult time for people. They had to quit farming, and quite many of them came down here to Vopnafjörður, and there was not enough space for all of the people that had been farming here up in the mountains. So just from Vopnafjörður, there went 1,300 people to Canada. Of course, moving also from the east side, they came over here to take the boat to Canada. They talk about 13 to 14,000 Icelanders going to Canada at that time, on this period from 75 to 1910, something like that. 3 people from this farm went to Canada. To start with, it was Salina, here on the picture, that went. But soon after she got to Canada, she got very sick, and was in a hospital for 3 years. Some kind of a brain sickness, I'm not sure. And her mother, of course, got letters of this sickness, so she sent 2 of her brothers to get her, Björn and this one here. The thing was this, that they sent her home. She came home in 1914 and lived here until she died, but the brothers never came back.
You're meant to come and collect her, yeah.
The thread that they are made of is a woman's hair.
Oh.
She, every time she cut her hair, or if she combed, she used to gather the hair and make a thread out of it, and knitted shoes for her children out of it.
Was it because there was like a lack of different materials?
Well, of course, and it was just also the thinking from people, you use everything you can. You don't throw anything, so I think it's more because of that than of maybe they didn't have. You can see that here at the end, then you come into the turf part there. But in 1870 they started, like I say, to put wood on the walls, and then they made this little room here for milk production. Before they made that also in the turf part, but it is quite difficult to make cheese and milk production when it's not totally clean, because the germs will can be destroyed. So they made this little room for milk production in here. Room for the male workers. They used to sleep up here where all of the workers used to sleep. But we don't know why they separated the women and the male, but some people think that it's because of unwanted children. But who knows? We don't
I'm sure it's to protect the men from the women.
Yes, here usually 5 beds in here.
5, okay.
Yes. This one was also put up here, and they used to weave up there. But when we made this into a museum, then it was not space for it up there, so we put it in here. This man, he was a homeopath around 1850, and this here was his cupboard where he kept his medicine that he made himself. All people, I think, almost used tobacco at that time. So and they got the tobacco in like a rolls like this, and during the evenings the males would sit and cut the tobacco like this, and or they would put it in like this this big and put it in the lip. But usually they used it for the nose, and then they would sit for hours and hours to cut it down until it was suitable. And then they
would been quite therapeutic for them to do it.
Yes. And then they would put the tobacco in this, and this is the skin out of bull's testicles.
Good grief.
And they would keep the tobacco in there.
We've heard that the people apparently make pickled rams.
Yeah.
They eat pickled ram's testicles here as well.
Oh yes, quite good.
You like it?
Well, my parents, they were quite worried because I grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
And of course grew up by all of the blood pudding and sour blood pudding and sheep pads and testicles and all that.
Yeah.
But I never liked the Icelandic food very much, and they were very worried about this, what kind of a chill child I was. But I managed somehow. Yes, because in 1770 there was like a sheriff of the county was living here, so he built it very big. But the latest 2 generations, it was just normal farmers, but then they had the house, so they could use it. Also that poor farmers, they didn't have as good material to build out of, so they would just last much shorter time than the ones that had a little bit more money then. For example, my father is born in a house like this, but my grandparents were very poor, and their house was maybe 1/3 of this house, and then the cows were having the same entrance as the humans, because you needed the heat from the animals also as much as you could. And there was usually quite many dogs at the farms, And it was not only because of the sheep, it was also because they used them to sit on their feet.
Oh really? So they to keep their feet warm?
Yes.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
This here the workers slept, all of them before. Then it used to reach until the white chimney over here.
Yeah.
And when they made this room down there, they
Yeah.
would shorten it up here.
Okay.
At similar time, then the old farmer, he was getting old. His wife had died, so but he didn't want to move out to the workers because he was giving the couple's room that is in there to his son and his family. But he didn't want to sleep with the workers, so he made this little room here for him.
Did they have this? Was this for cooking as well, or?
Yes, we have it.
Because it looks like a sort of a kitchen forward / dining area a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was like this in the old times. The bed was the only privacy. It was like a home to people. They would eat there, they would sleep there, and they would work there. Especially during the winter months, this was their working place also. As you see, most of the beds you can both shorten them and widen them, and that is because, well, to shorten them are three main reasons. During the summertime, there were more people, more workers here than usually. So then you had to have the bed shorter so they can fit in more people. Also, people believed that to lie down as we do today when we sleep, that was not healthy for people because they were looking too much like that people.
Yeah.
So they believed they would have a short life if they was lying down like this. But number three, and I personally think that was the most reason, that people used to sleep sitting because they were burning dried lamb shit in here. We didn't have any wood, so they would take the shit from the lamb, take it out in the sun and dry it up and keep it for the winter to burn it.
Yeah.
And when you are burning dried lamb shit, it comes with very much smoke. There was chimney here. We had to close it because there came so much water. But it was a chimney, but it didn't take all of the smoke. And so people just had lung diseases, asthma, and all kinds of things. So it was just easier for them to breathe. Then you can also think of people that used to have like 8 to 12 children. That was quite normal. And then the workers and the family and everybody would gather around here in the afternoon.
There's quite a lot of people inside of the house.
Yeah. We think maybe from 15 up to 35 was quite normal. They would close so the heat wouldn't go out, and they would be burning here to get a little bit heat. And then people took a bath once or twice a year, and they are coming from milking the cow or feeding the sheep. All of them gathering here. I mean, it must have been just difficult to breathe in that sense if you think of the thick air. And also because I mean, during the winter time you couldn't open a window because there was snow all over it. So they were sitting here. The thing
That's okay.
they're doing is mostly making threads out of wool. Then during the winter time they would work with it. They would sit like this, and this is the first part they actually do with it. And then it would take quite a long time until you had every piece of thread. It would have to be like this. This here would not be good. Because they had to be all in the same direction and no nuts in it. So they could, and after they had done that for much longer time, then they would decide here how thick the thread was going to be. And then they would drag it out like this. After that they would put it in this thing here, and make it turn so they would get the thread done. And after it came, then it was put on that, and then knitting. They also, like horsehair, they could do that by hand. And it's the same method like this one, but
Wow.
like that. Now you can see how, because I did this here badly, how the thread will be thin and thick and thin and thick. So that's why it was quite important to do the first work well.
Yeah.
But now you see, this is turned into a quite good thread. So this was what they were doing. Later on, they would actually sell the socks and the gloves that they were
Making.
Yeah, you had to buy this tree from the government because they said how big the socks were supposed to be. If you
Oh,
were
really?
Yes.
So there's government regulation for sock size?
Yes, it was. And
Wow.
also for the gloves. Now people, when they were eating, they would eat out of things like this. And as I was telling you that people, this was their home in that sense. And they liked to decorate with wood. They didn't have that much that belonged to themselves. So they decorated what was surely theirs. So, for example, this here was used, this one, it was made in 1814. And this was used
So they would do some wood carving on the personal, let's say, items, for the household.
Yeah, also like what you put on the sheets is the sheets they would saw in that. Here is so the way wouldn't fall on the floor, but also that if there came guests, of course you didn't have any guest room in that sense in those old days. You would just make the bed a little bit bigger and put the guest in bed with the worker, and then this here was good because you would make your privacy in between.
Oh, it's between two people.
This room, as you
I think
see,
people must have been much smaller and thinner perhaps back then, that they would fit two people on the bed like this.
Well, it was, yeah, but the thing was this, that even in those beds, that if they maybe made it a little bit longer, they would put in there maybe 2 kids with a worker.
Okay.
That was yes, it was very unusual that you slept alone, but it was also because of the heat. One of the sons of this old man that he learned how to make books.
Yeah.
And he decided that he wanted his own working place. So this was built for him, and he used to sleep here and work here. But then he moved away after maybe 5 or 10 years, and after that this became a workers or a guest room.
Right.
Sometimes there were students here that were learning how to play piano and things like that. And it's handmade from the sister of the one that used to live here. And she even made this here herself also. But the sun has taken a little bit of the colors away. Then we have also the skirt here. We have few national costumes. And this is the skirt. You can see how the handwork is. You know, this is one where you have a big hat on top. If you have seen pictures
We've seen
of that.
people in Reykjavik, because we were there for the Independence Day, and they were wearing the national costumes, but they had these, the women had like a small black hat with something hanging on the side.
Yeah, that belongs to this one.
Yeah.
But then we have somebody that is you know, just for high, big celebrations, for weddings or something, and then you would wear a skirt like this, and then you have a high...
like a witch hat.
Yeah, almost. And something white coming down the shoulders, and this is the skirt belonging to that.
Was it like each family member would have their own spoon, and it was just made personal?
Yeah, because the housewife would not clean up those things. If you didn't clean it yourself, then you would just
So that helped him to find out who's been leaving the dirty spoons.
Yeah. Those things, butter and fat, was very important to the people in those days because because of the cold and the hard work, they needed something to burn. But of course, butter was and milk was something you had to be careful of how you used. So one box like this, a worker would get that for a week, and you can eat it on the first day or the last day, but you wouldn't get any more than this. Then you see that there's a different size of it, depending on how many cows there was on the farm you were working at. And we would use this as the ram, and this would be a cow, and then well, this would be a sheep, and this is the calf, and then we would take the teeth out and make this as chicken. Those were the chicken, and then you had your own farm. We would, with those bygones, we would play outside, and usually we had, our children had a little hill or something that was their valley where they made different kinds of farms.
That's unusual. I wouldn't have thought, that something like that would be used as a toy.
And like I said, because I was so lucky that I grew up with my grandma on their home, so she would teach us how to play with this. I've tried to teach my children to do the same, but somehow they like Playmobil better. But small things like this was something you used when you were playing inside. Then the mother, or my mother at least, they would usually boil it and prepare it for you so it wouldn't be stinky.
I think people were very resourceful back then. They just knew how to make use of absolutely everything that was available.
They did, and like I say, I think those people were heroes in that sense, because it was difficult to live in those houses. I once remember, because the farm where I grew up was still standing when I was growing up, so my granny sometimes went with me, and once I said, I wish I would have been able to live in the house.
In the turf roof house.
Yeah, and she became so angry.
Yeah.
Because he said, you are misunderstanding this, kid. I'm telling you this because you have to know it. It's your roots. But be thankful for the house you are living in. You don't know how difficult it was. It was cold, it was wet. Sometimes they even, the water during the springtime were running inside. So you were always wet in your feet.
Flood,
And sometimes, sometimes they didn't even take the clothes off them when they went to sleep, so they were
cold.
It was just terrible, she said. And it was quite usual. But people had 12 children, lost 5 of them, 6 of them, 8. So she lost, my granny lost her oldest child, I think at the age of 3 months. And then there was only one doctor on east part of Iceland, and you see how long way it is. My grandfather, he went on a horse to meet the doctor, and the doctor was drunk when he came.
Oh, no.
And he made too strong medicine, because then you had to mix the medicine yourself, and he made too strong. So he came home with the medicine, and they gave the child the medicine, and it fell asleep and died half an hour later.
Oh, no.
So this is just, like I say, it's important to know how it was. And of course, they didn't know anything else. They were happy. They hadn't tried to live as we did. But it was hard when you can compare it to something better. Here we have the turf wall. The thing
so that's what it was on the inside?
This was how it was inside. Wow. And in the year 1943, when this was made into a museum, and they made a deal with the family to live here. They said, well, okay, but we need a little bit more comfort. So they had a toilet and a heating system room, and I had a little new kitchen made inside inside this concrete, as we will show. I will show you later on. But it was just a thick turf wall here before. So there was no rooms or nothing. It was just this thick turf wall. So this was like this on both sides. But it is actually quite strange because you don't notice this that much when you walk through.
Yeah. Would they all use one kitchen or?
Yes.
Okay.
And because there was just one family or one farmer, and then he had just loads of workers, or he would have maybe his brother or sister living with their family. But they had also, because it was the sheriff in 1770, they had responsibility to the society around them. For example, if there were old people that didn't have any relatives, they would have to take care of them, or handicapped people in that sense. Because, as I told you before, there would be so much smoke coming from the dried lamps that they were burning. Then the smoke would go up and smoke the meat that was hanging up here. And
so the meat was smoked with animal dung fumes. The smoke from the animal dung.
Oh yes. And
incredible.
That is the best today.
That's the best meat.
That is
really?
the best if we can have. Icelanders look for that.
Yeah.
We have a special name for that kind of smoking, and because of course they have these ovens and all kinds of things today, but we look for that. Is that with the same smell and same gets a taste. Well, yes. Here you can see this was the working place of the women, and they would be working here 14 to 16 hours a day. Usually, at the age 50, they were old women. They were worn out. Couldn't just then they were their back was like this, and that was because they were when there was smoke in here, which was always. They would bow down under the smoke because the smoke would go up. So they were working more or less like this.
Bent over.
So that's why the back was turning. Then quite often there were, as we know, women doing quite many things at the same time. So they were maybe making food, and making butter, and probably having 2 or 3 kids with them also. Here you can see here down here, that would be the highest heat, and then the lowest, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 machines today. Another part of how of evolution that I think also is the laundry. You can see here. First, they would use this here to wash. And then they started first one like this, and then this, where they put something to burn in here, got hot water, and then would wash it like that. Then this washing machine was used until 1958 on a farm here. And then you would put the clothes and the water down here, and then the children was used as electricity in that sense. And they stood and did like this.
Wow.
Until they decided it was clean.
Well, that's better than some of the laundry we've had done on
our
our travels, because they weren't going like that and moving the water. They were just like rubbing it against a stone or something.
I was surprised how many people still do hand washing these days.
That was the first thing. Then they went out to the little river, down out here, and washed there. Right. But after it came into the house, then they started with this. Then this came, and then this here later on.
Must have been really hard work in a cold temperature, and
oh yes,
it's hard work in a normal climate.
Oh yes. This here is, where you have wet ground. You can feel that you are walking wet. They would dig down. There was quite much roots there. They would bring that up and dry it and burn it also. this was very difficult to light the fire up. So every tiny little piece of wood was kept just to make the fire going. So
I would assume that the wood was quite expensive in Iceland.
Very expensive, yes. And you know, this driftwood that was coming with the sea. Usually those farms that was nearby the sea where the driftwood was coming were richer farmers because they could sell the driftwood. So here, have you tasted skyr?
We have.
Yeah.
Is this fresh or?
This is how they made it in the old days. Skyr is actually not done as yogurt. It's done more like you do cheese.
Yeah.
And you know, after you have made it into this, both the germ and what makes it thick, then they would put it in this, and then the liquid would go from it down to the barrel. And in the barrel, they would actually keep the blood pudding and make it sour for the winter. Because all of the food would be sour, salted, or dried. That was the only method they had to
preserve.
Keep it.
Yeah.
Before that, they had those started with some kind of a tiny little kitchen. They had digged in this turf wall where they had like a little fireplace or something. This stove came here in 1949, and the woman, the mother of the farmer that lives here now, she comes here every summer for a visit to check on how we put things up
in the kitchen,
and she always comes and that she says this was just heaven when I had the stove. Then they burned coals and didn't have to burn the dry lamps anymore, and it was much healthier.
I would assume that they would spend quite a lot of time here because it was just warm and they were.
Yes. And usually people used to eat there in this room too. But the couple always ate here, the two of them together.
Yeah.
And because I was showing you how they make butter with this going up and down, and you can also see the newer one here.
Yeah.
And here you can actually start to turn this. And little by little you had first with this kind of wheels to make it easier. And then our generation, of course, put machines and computers to it. It's quite funny that one of the last workers that was here the years 1965 and 6, she came here for a visit, and it was very fun to walk through the museum with her. But she is so high. I think she's 190, and she said, well, it was 6 meals per day. And she had to do all of the dishes. And once she was standing there, and she said, I remember I was standing here the half of the day. And she was leaning like this because this is so low.
Yeah, she had to just bend over quite a lot.
And I said, well, how was your back after the day?
Yeah. The whole family slept in one room, still in 1943 onwards.
No, you're 66.
6 people in one room.
7.
7 from 1943. Still.
Oh yes.
Oh wow. I'm sure it was like that in other countries, but it's compared to today.
Yeah. So it's in '66. The family, the brothers and sister that come here, and they prepare this room. Those are their things. They're not giving them to the museum, but they lent us this to show it, and they put it up as they remember it. This is their mother and father sleeping here. Björg that lives here now. She slept here. Her sister Birna, Gulli, and the Methuselah. He slept here. He was 14 years old when he moved over, and then the youngest one. He was
the cot for the baby,
And it's quite funny to when you get teenagers here and ask them how they would think it would be to be in the same bedroom as mom and dad and 4 of your brothers and sisters as a teenager. Until 70, I think it was huge changes in Iceland. Everything changed so fast. Then, of course, we had democracy in 1944, and then the herring came, which which we call the silver of the sea. And people suddenly had work and they could sell and they had some money and started to build houses. And then another thing, it was the Second World War that was quite giving us quite much money. So just on 20 to 30 years, we went from, like I say, those turf houses until to being just a modern people. Because I think we were quite after Europe in that sense before that. And then suddenly we took a big jump on a few years. So
it's quite a dramatic sort of change, yeah.
So you see, it's like my father, who was born in 47. He is born in a house like this, and I'm born in 1970, and I had my own bedroom. Well, no, I didn't, because me and my brother, the oldest one, we were together the first years, but then my father made me a separate room when I became a teenager. So just on those years, everything has changed. But my mom, though, was telling me, and I was quite surprised. She said when I was born, she didn't have any hot water in the house. It was she had to boil all the water to do. To wash, to bathe me and everything. And I was quite surprised. I thought it had been, and it was like in Reykjavik and the bigger places. Then they had, but she was a farmer.
The more remote places were,
So it took a little bit. It was a little bit slower out in the countryside, and Dexter was nearby the sea. And they would put this around the neck, and then they would put the water. They put the water in the ponds here, and then they would use this here, because the hardest thing when you're carrying heavy thing is to hold it out. So they use this here to hold it out.
Well, in Asia, you'd see people with like a bamboo pole on their shoulder, and then,
still carrying things,
and then bits of string or rope holding things on each end of the bamboo pole. To this day.
Yeah, to retame the heat, people would put the grass over the house and on the sides. Yeah.
They would do that. And also, if there came a leakness, it started leaking during the winter time. Then they would take a cow shit and put in the hole and let it dry there to fill it up, and until the snow had gone so they could fix it actually. You can see how thick the walls are also. Both so it would stand longer, and also for isolation, and more layers, less running through. They actually put this flower in the walls because they believed that it would not burn down if this was growing in the walls.
Really? So people are quite superstitious?
Very, very. Yeah, I mean, all kinds of things they believed, and I have so many rules in my head that my grandma told me not to do because it would be
something
bad
would
luck.
happen.
Yes, black cat going from left to right, and yes, it was some insect I could not kill because it would be bad luck for 10 years or something. Of course, the mirror, that is also international, I think, breaking the mirror. And people believe, still maybe some people believe in elves and all kinds of things, but we think that is strange people. So, but they actually say they can talk to them and see them or something still today.